So, first of all, Wednesday is a kind of a weird day. It's in the middle of the week. Therefore, it is wacky. Because it's like, okay, I've made it halfway through the week. I hope I made it get to Friday. I hope I won't be dead by then. And then it will be the weekend. And I will be free. But it's also like that point of the week where you're like, now what? Now what do we do? What do we do? And so it's just the fact that something is in the middle does not necessarily mean, you know, oh, it's just medium. It's just medium well done, or it's just right there, and it's just, the happy medium right there. That's not the case. It's just a time of kind of disorientation. It's a time where you're in between the weekday and you're in between the weekend. So you're in this, your one foot is in the weekend and the other foot is in the weekday. So there's that. And so we're gonna do some wacky things. I'm gonna say some wacky things. So first thing, wacky fun fact. And please, you don't have to answer this. What is it with geeky, nerdy guys looking so hot in leather? Okay, first there's Doug Bradley in Pinhead. I mean, that costume makes up for a lot of his sex appeal. And it's the makeup. Nerdy guys look amazing in makeup. They always do. Because they have sometimes they have unusual features, like Christopher Eccleston. Christopher Eccleston is another great example for a guy that looks great in leather. He wore a leather jacket as the Ninth Doctor in Doctor Who in 2005. He was only a doctor for one season due to a toxic work environment, and one of the head honchos he had a disagreement with. Possibly he was making it toxic for him to work, and he felt that it was necessary for him to remove himself from BBC. And he has had a long, successful career after that. I really admire him because he advocates autism as well as Alzheimer's because his father has it. But enough about that. Another thing is Robert Carlyle. Robert Carlyle, I'm gonna say, I love him. Hamish Macbeth, Full Monty, Rumple, and Mr. Gold on Once Upon a Time. And as Mr. Gold, he's classy. He's like, let's have a suit and a cane. Like, obviously, like, I'm a rich aristocrat kind of thing. And the wig, the hairpiece that he has is amazing, too. It's awesome. But then he has the makeup, and he looks amazing, right? He looks fantastic. He's scary. He's very scary looking. But then at the same time, there's just something deliciously attractive. The way he has that high voice and the way he wears his leather. He wears leather pants, okay? I don't know how he got leather pants in that dimension, but he looks amazing. He looks, and a lot of people get this weird thing, oh, he's nerdy and he's too skinny, he's that. That was never an issue to me, that was never an issue. That was never an issue when I looked at him in leather pants. I wasn't like, oh, he's really skinny or whatever. No, that was never an issue. I was like, that is what a good looking guy looks like in leather. Okay? He's a man. And you have to remember that nerdy guys, that doesn't mean that you're like a total dweeb. That's a different thing. A nerd can be Jeff Goldblum, okay? Jeff Goldblum, as far as I'm concerned, he looks amazing in anything he wears. He's good looking, and yeah, there has been a fan base, and I don't know who in this fan base is like, yeah, that guy is hot. But if you've seen him in The Fly, him doing gymnastics, that was hot. He wasn't wearing leather, he was just wearing pants and a shirt and no shirt. So, yeah, leather does make the costume and it does appeal to the eye. And this doesn't go for every woman, okay? It doesn't go, yeah, maybe you're into men as well. That doesn't go uh, um, for every gay guy, you know? You like what you like, and that's what's important. Whatever keeps you happy, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But, you know, leather is attractive. And, you know, you could put anybody in there. But it's not just the leather that is attractive. This is something that is known, it has been around since probably, I'm gonna say the 60s and the 50s, okay? Because it got to the point where, and this is a fun fact, so Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock, actually got more fan mail than William Shatner. I mean, William Shatner was, you know, the typical good-looking all-American male, you know? He was a decent-looking guy. Unfortunately, his personality is questionable. He's not really, let's just say he's not a nice guy, okay? I'm not gonna go into why. But a lot of people, there was actually a time where, uh, you know, he was gonna sign his record. He had made a record, singing, he was actually singing. So, he was singing, and, so he was gonna sign it, and they were smashing the glass door in the building in which he was sitting. And one of the security guards said, Mr. Nimoy, I think we're going to have to, like, get you out of here as quickly as possible because there is a huge horde of women that are breaking down the glass door and windows to get in to see you. They are going to trample you. This is a dangerous situation. We need to get you out. So they got him out of the building, rushed him into the limo, and got him out of there before that happened. So not very many people did that for William Shatner, okay? And it came to his attention. It was like, are you aware that a lot of women have these sexual fantasies about you? And what do you have to say about that? And he said, well, may all their dreams come true, is what he said. Otherwise, he was very accepting of fantasies that people have, and whether they're sexual or not, we are all entitled to have them. It's not hurting anybody, essentially. So if you want to have fantasies about anything that you want, it's your right to. It's your mind. It's your life. So that was kind of his thing. And I really do believe that he was autistic because he was a painter, he was a writer, he was a producer, he was a director. He directed a movie called 3 Men and a Baby with Steve Guttenberg, Tom Selleck, and Ted Danson. So he directed that movie, and he wrote books. He was a writer, he was a poet, he was a singer, he was an actor in both stage and film and TV. So we're talking about massive talent on so many levels. And I actually lived nearby where his home was. I never met him or saw him, but pretty much everybody there knew that he was there. And then there were some close friends and a few people on the outside that were able to get close to him that knew. So there were close friends that knew where he was. They didn't know the exact address, but they kind of knew the approximate location, and it was above a river. And the house that I lived in, which was in Nevada City, which is in California, the reason it's called Nevada City is I think it's near Nevada. It's on the border. And I lived there, I was about 4 or 5, And yeah, we would walk up to the river, and one of those houses was Leonard Nimoy's. And I learned that much, much later. And so it's exciting that I was that close to a legend, you know. But he was very reclusive, very private. He was a very quiet person around a lot of people. He had a very subtle sense of humor. He often, like, I really don't think it was bipolar because everybody's like, bipolar, it's bipolar. Because he had more depressive issue. I know that bipolar is a little bit different for, it's like autism essentially. It's different from person to person, and everybody, you know, reacts to bipolar in a different way, and we all have different brains, you know. So, but he was more antisocial, and he didn't make a lot of eye contact. I noticed he was very he didn't really have a connection with his family, and then he would drink to kind of cope with his depression, which, as you know, is not a good mix. And if you have ADHD or autism or any kind of neurodivergency, drinking can be one of those things where it can do wonders if you're in a good mood, but it can also magnify your depression after it leaves your system. So, yeah, it makes you feel really good for a time, but then you're left with more depression than you had before. So that was like very apparent with him. And with Leonard Nimoy, I respect him, and I love him, and R.I.P. Uh, you know, there's a special place in heaven for Trekkie actors. Definitely, definitely a special. I think God has a. I think God loves the Trekkies as well. You know, so you know, he wasn't overly religious, but I do believe that he recognized God. I don't think there was any doubt. I think he really did. Uh, he had, I think, connected with his Jewish roots, and both his parents were Jewish, and his family was not very happy about him being an actor. The acting was like the beginning of the end for them. I mean, they saw his first film that he ever did, which was I don't remember what it was called, but it was not very eventful, but it was one of those movies where he had he was a boxer, and he had a deformity, and they had to put like the prosthetic on some of his face, and he was very young, and I actually watched it on YouTube. And the first time that they saw it, they just wept. It wasn't like weeping like, we're so happy that you're being successful. It was like weeping like it was the end of the world for them. They were losing their son. Their son had done the unthinkable, and they wouldn't talk about it. And so he never had that support from his family, which I think really, really stuck with him. I think, you know, that was kind of what drove him, but it also was what kind of kept him from, I think, connecting with other people, was his relationship with his parents. And it was almost like, you know, he didn't have really that supportive family life. So it was kind of hard for him to be the supportive family man, you know, the dad, the father figure, because I don't think he really knew what that was. And it was very sad. And I read his book, which was a lovely read. Fantastic book. It was an autobiography done by him. Definitely a very beautiful soul, very sensitive and sweet. And, you know, the first thing you hear when you're like, oh, he was drinking and he wasn't available to his family, you think judgment automatically. But I looked at it and I was like, he was autistic, and there wasn't really a diagnosis at that time. If there was, it would have been probably labeled as manic depressive, or it would have been labeled as a mental illness. There wasn't a lot of support for that, and I don't think he was ever aware of it, and nobody diagnosed him because As I said, he was a very private person, and I think whatever. So yes, he had a drinking problem, and I sympathize with people who have addictions. I don't enable them, but I do sympathize with them because I know that we are all human, and we use certain coping mechanisms that don't work, and we make mistakes, and we make millions, trillions, sextillion, countless and numerous mistakes, and to judge someone for that is just, that's not something I want to do. And the way I saw it is he had a good heart, he had a beautiful soul, and he, I think, wanted to connect, but he just didn't know how. He didn't know how to connect with his family. And, it was very apparent that, when he said that his son was born, there was a chapter that said, "My son was born on this day, and my life changed forever." And then that was it. That was the only time he mentioned his son. And I think it was because he didn't really have any words for it. I think it really did move him, that he had a son, but it was just so emotionally overwhelming for him. And when you have autism, that's definitely, you have so many emotions on so many levels, and they are not just at one level. They are on multiple levels, and they are constantly going up and down. And I don't think he could handle that. I think he was very moved that he had a son, but as far as connecting with the child, he just didn't know how, and I don't think that was his fault. It was his upbringing, but it was also because he was probably neurodivergent, and neurodivergent, I'm not going to go on and say neurodivergence is sexy, but intelligence is sexy. Intelligence is, but also sensitivity. And he was sensitive, and he was intelligent, and I think that's what's very attractive to someone. When you get someone, Jeff Goldblum, for instance, I always thought he was kind of a weirdo, but I liked him, and he made me laugh. He would talk endlessly about things, and he was improvisational. He was funny. He just had that comic rhythm that was needed, the perfect timing. He usually did. Sometimes it was a hit or miss, but most of the time he did. And I saw him in an interview on the Hot Ones, and I found out, wow, he's such a down-to-earth, sensitive guy. And yeah, I just saw the sensitivity as well as the intelligence, and that was very attractive. And I thought, yeah, this is why I like him, right? Even though I wasn't aware that he was like that, I always thought, doesn't he have a big ego? He looks like somebody who would. But if he does have an ego, I think he's very comfortable with it. He doesn't flaunt it around. I think his ego is mostly just confidence. It's confidence in himself and his ability and what he's capable of. But I think genuinely a lot of that egotism is mostly in the characters he plays. His voice sounds very egotistical, and he sounds like someone who would be very full of himself, but he's really not. I think that's mostly a persona he plays. It's the characters that he does, but it's attractive. He's intelligent, he's a nerd, he's geeky, and that's attractive to people, both men and women. And not everybody is into that. I mean, everybody has a preference. Sometimes, and I'm not saying that everyone feels this way. That's a generalization. That's totally something I don't want to do. I do not want to go out of my way and just say everybody has this and everybody, because I don't know. There's billions of people on this planet, and they all want something different and see something different when they are looking for a partner or a husband or a wife or somebody to spend the rest of their life with. And all depending what kind of sexuality you are. If you're asexual, you might not have a preference at all. You might just not like either one, and that's perfectly normal as well. It's perfectly normal to have an attraction to someone, and it's perfectly normal not to. There's nothing wrong, and I have no prejudice against anybody's sexuality, because we're all individuals and we're unique, and it takes a lot of people to make a world, and it's diverse, and I think we should all celebrate these unique differences. And so no, I would never say, hey, this is what's normal and this is what's not. It's not my job, because this is your life. This is their life. That's what works for them. That's what makes them happy. That's what fulfills them. That's what makes them feel like they're successful. And that is their formula for happiness. It's not my job to tell them that formula, because these formulas differ from person to person, which is one of the reasons I don't really hold on to like those motivational videos and books, is because somebody seems to like say, well, this is the success, this is what we do to make money, this is what we do to be happy, this is what we do to pray, this is what we do when we go to the store. It's like, I find it offensive. I find it kind of like, this isn't going to work for me. This is totally not going to work for me right now. And so I tend to stray away from that, because I understand that they're trying to be helpful. And I know they're not telling me that this is the way I'm supposed to live my life, but I'd like to find out how to live my life on my own without listening to people say, this is what I do. And I'm like, that's great. And so that's why I think a lot of these success stories or success motivational speakers are really overrated, because it's like, how do you know that this is going to work for you? Because one person will say, this absolutely works, this helps me lose weight, or this helps me be happy, this helped me go back to church, this helped me get a sex change, something like that, and might work. While for me, it might not work at all. Like, I might not want to have a sex change, I might not want to go to church, I might not want to do these things. Now, if it was valuable to me and I wanted, so you got to be specific. When you're looking for something specific, you have to individually pick a motivational speaker that is going to speak to you. And that's really difficult, because not everything will speak to you. Not everyone is going to connect with you and where you are in your life. And so that's the main thing. And I don't really care. When I say I don't care about someone's sexual preference or who they're sexually attracted to, it's not that I don't care. I care about the person more than anything else. I'm not going to sit there and worry about, gee, what do they do in the bedroom? How do they, get it on? It's like, we don't need to talk about that. Do we? I don't worry about what heterosexuals do. I don't. I don't worry about that. And it's not my business to worry about what they do in the privacy of their own home. It's the same thing. And it's not that we shouldn't talk about it. If you're comfortable with talking about your own sexuality, then do so. But some people just don't want to advertise it, and that's perfectly normal as well. But then you also have to be respectful of those that are private and those that are open. And you should be able to say, hey, I'm not down with that. I don't need to hear you talk about your sexual preference or what you do in the privacy of your own home. I don't need to know. You don't have to show me anything about this. And some people are just not comfortable with that. And there are people, like Dr. Ruth, that will talk about it constantly. They're professionals. They're able to do that, and I think that's great. So either way, if you're private or you're open, that's fine. There's no wrong way. There's nothing wrong with being comfortable with who you are and your sexuality. There's nothing wrong with that. But we do have to be respectful of people's comfort and not so much, the main thing is just don't be an asshole about it, Don't be an asshole. If you disagree or you agree or you think it's great or you think it's awful, be respectful. Um, don't say, ew, that's gross, or, oh, I'd never do that. How do you know? You don't know. You know, if somebody told you, hey, I'm going to hang the Christmas tree upside down, are you going to tell them, yeah, you could say, oh, that's weird. But then on the other hand, if that's a friend of yours, you're going to say, well, yeah, that works because the cats won't get on it. The dog won't drag it all the way through the house. You know, it's not my job to worry about whether people butter their bread up or butter their bread down. You know, we're not going to have a butter battle here. It's not my job. And really, and another thing is intelligence. Intelligence is sometimes something that's chosen, but it's also sometimes something that you're born with. And intelligence does not have a gender or a race. Okay? You can be trans, you can be gay, bi, pan, you can be African American, you can be Asian, you can be white, you can be Hispanic and still be intelligent. And so, really, to put intelligence in a category is that's ridiculous. I don't want to put intelligence in a category. I'm not going to go and say, yeah, of course, an Asian person knows this because they're Asian. It's like, that's kind of racist. It's racist because it's like, do you expect every Asian to be able to take apart a computer? No, I don't know. I don't think Jackie Chan knows how to do that. He's Asian, you know. Uh, you know, that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent because they don't know how to take out a computer. Maybe they have other skills. We all have a unique set of skills, and our race and gender does not have to do anything to do with that. It's not inhibiting us or keeping us from something or magnifying it. It does help. I mean, with Asian culture, it does help that they are very motivated and they have that drive, or they grow up with that motivation and that pressure to do these things. And that's helpful. But there are some people that are Asian that I'm sure have no motivation. You know, they just like to watch Netflix and chill, okay? And that's perfectly normal as well. If you don't, it's okay not to have no motivation at times. Does that make you a failure? Does that make you a loser? No, no, no. You know, I could sit here all day and watch HBO and Netflix. I could. Now, success to me is, and this is my definition of success. Please take this with a grain of salt. Your version of success might be different than mine, but success to me is being a good person, being respectful, validating people, being kind, being not just nice, but being accepting, unconditionally loving, without judgment. That to me is success. Not the fact that I have a high salary or a nice car or that a big mansion, but because I know that there's more to money and work and all of that. I know there's more to life than that. There probably is a life beyond this one. And to work for something that is probably not going to be around, like money and material possessions are some of the things that are very perishable. Things get broken, things get lost, and we try to build things in a world that's already crumbling. It's kind of like we're building on swamp. We're building on a swamp, and that just doesn't work. There is no foundation, and unless your foundation is built on something that is strong, like love, happiness, joy, those kind of things, you will find that the things that you build, they're going to be like sandcastles. They will be swept away eventually, and you might be swept away with it. Things aren't always going to be, nothing is concrete or set in stone. Anything can change from within a couple minutes, couple hours, to months, weeks to years. Anything is possible. And so to say this is, yes, intelligence is attractive. Intelligence is a turn on. And it can be for some, and for others it can be something different. And I hope this was helpful. I don't know why I made this video, but I think it needs to be said, you know. I hope you all have a beautiful, blessed day.